Hey everyone, welcome back to the BrokerLink podcast. I'm here in the studio with Josh Slattery, who has been on the road at some of our carrier product rollouts for the upcoming AEP, specifically HealthSpring, formerly known as Cigna, and Aetna. So in this episode, Josh is going to go through his notes and give you the big takeaways so you can prepare for AEP. So Josh, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Gillen. It's a busy time of year. Our team has been on the road going to all the carrier kickoffs, and historically, these events were where the carriers gave us benefits for the upcoming year. What's changed recently this year and last year is that carriers are holding benefits much closer to vest. And the reason for that is rebid now has turned into more of a swing in benefits, where before, during this rebid period, generally in this month of August, late July, early August, the carriers can go back and fine tune the bids that they declared back in June. And in the past, it might have been very small changes, a little bit in OTC, maybe a little adjustment to dental benefits, but nothing that was significant. And this year and last year, we've gotten a lot of high-level information from the carriers, but we don't have that first look that's issued. So the first looks that we're seeing now are kind of the abridged versions, right? And so what we have in terms of details today are just kind of some high level strategy changes from all the carriers. And the big news from Cigna, to start there, was of course the recent acquisition from HCSC caused them to go through a branding change. And generally, these branding changes are done over multiple years.
Yeah.
Right? In a perfect world, it would have been Cigna, with the HealthSpring brand in a co-branding setting.
Right.
And, this year, it's going to be more of a rip the Band-Aid off. You're not going to see the Cigna brand on the Medicare Advantage and Part D plans. On the Medicare supplement plans, you will still see the Cigna brand because it's a state site. It's a state decision. The Department of Insurance at the state level approves these branding changes, and a lot of those cycles run more of a fiscal year that renew in June, July kind of time frame. So the Cigna brand will still operate on those ancillary and med sup products, but the PDP and the MAPD is now officially HealthSpring, and I wore HealthSpring here today. They made us their official brand ambassadors. I actually have some shoes that they gave us too. They're not quite my style. They have pink laces, but I'd say it's more of a fuchsia. So, it's that kind of purple color, which at first, for all of you old, or shouldn't say old, for all of you that have been in the business for a while like me, remember the old HealthSpring was a tree and green, and now we've got the purple, which I think looks a lot like Aetna. We're going to talk about Aetna today too, right? The two purple carriers are under discussion today. So that was really the big news, is the branding change. There was, of course, some market analysis that went into this, surveys of agents, members, and the surveys came back very positive that the HealthSpring brand is well received. It has high brand value. So I think it was kind of a no-brainer for the HCSC team that they would migrate to this HealthSpring brand. There was some debate, maybe Bravo. Bravo was another brand that was acquired because Cigna acquired Bravo many years ago and rebranded it to Cigna. So again, a flashback to the past for some of you that remember the Bravo brand. But HealthSpring is the new brand. Yes, it is that purple color, so it'll look a lot like Aetna in terms of the branding. But just know that not a lot has changed in terms of how these companies are going to operate.
Okay.
So HCSC with your Blue Cross of Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Illinois, Montana, still operates as the Blue Cross brand. And then you have your HealthSpring brand, and that still operates as a separate entity. So those two sales teams are completely different. The two product teams are completely different. I look at HCSC right now kind of like an Elevance, where they're managing two different health plans under one umbrella. So I think that's the way to view it moving forward. There was some speculation that there was going to be contract migration for 2026 and 27. From what I'm hearing, it looks like that won't happen. There's a lot behind the scenes that has to take place to migrate contracts, systems, product, teams internally. So as you can imagine, it's a pretty big undertaking. And there's other things they mentioned at the conference, like the rules around the franchised brand of Blue Cross and how can that be managed under one umbrella. So for all of you listening, the message here is it's going to be two separate companies. Don't expect much contract changes in the near future. I think the Cigna brand will focus more on your dual eligibles, your HMO, give back, the core kind of Cigna customer that's been targeted in the past, where Blue Cross has been more of that turning 65. I had Blue Cross as an employer coverage, and now I liked my experience there and I want to move over on the Medicare Advantage side or the standalone prescription drug side or the Med Sup side, because I like that brand, but it's never always been the cheapest on the street. So I think it's two different positioning going forward.
Okay.
We heard from Stephen Harris, who is the president of all government markets. So he oversees all of the Medicare products for HCSC. And a couple things are interesting that he noted. One is HCSC is not a publicly traded company. Why is that important? Well, they're not under these earnings call spotlights every single quarter, right? So they're not answering to shareholders, which means they can weather the storm, right? They don't have to necessarily make abrupt changes to appease shareholders. They can operate on a thin margin while we weather this storm and make decisions perhaps differently than what a publicly traded company would. The other thing is they have a very strong balance sheet, so they have an appetite for more acquisitions. Clearly, the Cigna Medicare acquisition was billions of dollars, and shows that they're well funded and they're ready to continue growing. And really, their goal is to be a top player in the Medicare Advantage space. You will see them continue to invest in markets like Texas and Illinois, where they have strong ACA and strong group products, again, to further this transfer of group members, ACA members, into Medicare plans. Of course, there was a lot of talk about market turbulence through all the conferences I've attended so far. That similar to what we talked about in our last podcast. That's a common denominator across all carriers.
Right.
Everybody's experiencing high utilization and higher cost trends. A lot of that lingering from the after effects of COVID and then the aging boomer population, and then just this product redesign. Clearly, the PPO plans under pressure. Cigna, or HealthSpring rather, noted only 10% of their plans are on a PPO chassis. So they feel that while there'll be some benefit changes there, they're not really heavily impacted by some of the challenges we're seeing in the PPO space. They are well known for their Part B give back plans, and that will continue to be a focus for Cigna moving forward, as well as growing in SNP space. And SNP is another common denominator. We're seeing really every carrier try to invest more in SNP. That's really no surprise. That's where a lot of the profitability is. And then the good news with Cigna is they'll continue to pay commission on Part D. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but that was just another key takeaway, was they'll have two commissionable standalone PDP plans. So we will have, a few carriers out there this year that pay comp on PDP. That's a good thing. I know that we all kind of speculated that there may not be any this year, but that's not turning out necessarily to be the case. Certainly there's going to be quite a few that do not pay a commission, but it won't be across the board. When we look at just the long-term focus for HCSC. Again, with this acquisition, they went from 3.7 million Medicare members to 5.8 million nationwide. And they want to continue accelerating membership to be a top 5 player nationally by 2030. They did gain 2 million standalone Part D members in the acquisition. So again, they're almost servicing now 6 million Medicare beneficiaries, and it puts them, as a top player in the industry. The new brand, will be heavily emphasized in the rollout. So it's not just for members, but clearly agents understanding the brand change, providers, vendor partners. The ANOCs will show the new HealthSpring brand. So agents just kind of need to be preparing, especially if they have a big book with Cigna, preparing their members that there's been a brand change.
Right.
And don't get alarmed if you see, a HealthSpring letter ANOC coming in the mail. A lot of brand awareness, TV, social, mail, print, digital. So, a full omni-channel experience of the new brand. Of course, there's going to be a lot of focus on brand awareness and ensuring that their members don't feel that they have to change plans, that this is still the Cigna that they've always known. As I mentioned earlier, the MedSup products will have a delayed brand launch, and they just asked HCSC and Cigna, combined, ask us just to do our best to promote the brand. Again, why I'm wearing the shirt today is to try to help, everybody understand that. Moving right along through my pages of notes. So from a product design perspective with HealthSpring, continued focus on HMO plans. They're going to have C-SNP product expansion. Looks like they're going to even expand on some of the diseases. Everywhere you really see Cigna being strong today is where they're likely going to be strong in the future. So markets like Houston, the Rio Grande Valley. They've had some expansion here in Dallas. Markets like Tennessee, the Carolinas, Illinois. Those are all going to be focuses for Cigna this coming AEP. They will enhance their member rewards program. There has been some interesting changes with Cigna on the D-SNP side that is unique. And I understand their position on this, but it does concern me a little bit about how the agent community will see this. So with the VBID changes this year, VBID going away, now all D-SNP plans have to be filed as SSBCI, Special Supplemental Benefits for the Chronically Ill. And you guys are going to hear us talking about this a lot because this is a big change for 2026. Cigna will have on those C-SNP plans that SSBCI qualifier. And think about a chronic plan. You have to become eligible with a chronic illness.
Right.
Congestive heart failure, COPD, diabetes are the most common. But with SSBCI, it's not just those chronic illnesses. It expands to things like hypertension, um, alcoholism, depression, fibromyalgia. Like there's a long laundry list of additional items beyond our kind of core chronic illnesses for a C-SNP that'll allow you an SSBCI. So a much more liberal list. And anybody that qualifies for a C-SNP clearly has one of those. So that SSBCI platform works very well on a C-SNP plan. Anybody that enrolls in a C-SNP now has that food card benefit if it's filed on that plan. Could be, $0 generics. It could be gas at the pump, rental assistance. All those fall under this SSBCI category. Cigna says, though, or HealthSpring, got to keep correcting myself there, that they don't want that SSBCI on their D-SNP plans this year. Instead, they're going to put in an enhanced member rewards program. So today, if a member qualifies for the Cigna member rewards, they unlock $200 in benefits, and it can be used for groceries. as one item. There's a variety of different things they can use their member rewards towards. They have to do a wellness exam and meet some criteria to qualify, but it's eligible for every member on the plan.
Okay.
They see that as a very clean member experience.
Yeah.
Versus if you put SSBCI on a D-SNP, you can't guarantee that 100% of members are going to qualify for those value-added benefits.
Right.
There's some carriers out there that are saying 90%, 95%. The majority of your dual eligibles will have one of these chronic illnesses that qualify for those additional benefits. But what about that 5 to 10% that don't qualify? Does the agent properly explain that benefit to where if I'm sitting across from you today and selling you on this D-SNP plan, but there's some ambiguity around whether or not you're going to get that food card or not, and I kind of oversell it and say, yeah, you should qualify, 90% of members qualify, and then you don't, are you upset about that? And do you then file a CTM, or do you end up wanting to change plans? And so that could lead to a rapid disenrollment. And so I think there is a threat to the member experience with the new guidelines with SSBCI.
Yeah.
Cigna's position on that is it's such a threat that we're not going to have SSBCI on D-SNP. So what does that mean? The food card will not be an option except through the member rewards program. So agents have to understand how that works. If it's $500 in food benefits, that's roughly what, $45 a month, compared to some plans that may have $100 or more a month if you qualify through SSBCI.
Yeah.
The good news with Cigna's duals, though, is that the partials, which they've been known for through the years, is to allow your partial Medicaid, your SLIMB, your QI1, those will still be eligible for their D-SNP, versus you've seen in previous years, carriers dissect those two, a full dual plan and then a plan designed for partial duals. The D-SNP world is getting very complex now, right? When we talk about integration, if they don't have Medicaid, then they can only enroll in that plan AEP and OEP, and Cigna's in that category in a lot of their service area. You have other carriers that are very well positioned with integration, which gives them that year-round selling opportunity. So again, it's just we're seeing the strategies unfold here on the D-SNP. I don't know how this will play out, but I do think that it's a unique position that Cigna's taking. I think the member rewards is a great way to preserve member experience, but I also think it could potentially be a threat for those that really value that food card and decide that they'd rather roll the dice, make sure that they qualify for SSBCI, and get that additional benefit at a higher rate than what the member rewards program offers. Some other things that they're introducing supplemental benefit wise is caregiver support, which will be offered on most HMOs. New OTC benefit that includes hearing aids this year. Again, that healthy grocery allowance that'll be available through SSBCI on the C-SNP products. All plans will have a $0 tier 1 copay. That's a big investment. So again, that's one other major change with VBID going away, is now you do not have $0 drugs across the board for those dual eligibles. So a lot of carriers are buying it down, including Cigna, and in fact they're saying $0 copays pretty much across the board on all plans. RX deductibles is something Cigna did not have last year. Moving into AEP last year, we looked at Cigna's benefits, no drug deductibles. Their MOOPs were very consistent year over year. They were an outlier. And as a result, we've had just tremendous sales from Cigna. It's our best year ever from Cigna. Everybody that's listening to this podcast probably wrote more Cigna this year than they ever wrote. Very, very competitive. And we all know we're in a 3-year correction. So if a carrier didn't make an adjustment last year, they've got to make it this year or next year.
Right.
And so we kind of forecasted this coming. I don't think you're going to see, a major significant change from Cigna, but I do think that now we're seeing drug deductibles. Will that cause some members to shop around? We also see that, probably their MOOPs will increase. We don't know that yet. We haven't seen that level of benefits, but the RX deductibles that are being introduced are for tiers 3, 4, 5, and then any, specialty drugs. So tier 1 and 2 excluded from the deductible. You can get a 100-day drug supply with at-home delivery for the same price as a 90-day supply. So that's another positive for Cigna. In terms of PDPs, there's still a lot of details to come out on the standalone Part D space. We don't know what the direct subsidy is going to be. If you recall from last year, it went from, roughly 30 up to almost 140. So a big shift. We do forecast that will increase again, not as substantial as last year, but likely going to see increases on standalone Part D premiums. The way that the Part D landscape kind of shook out was WellCare clearly ended up with the lion's share of the members looking for zero premium.
Yep.
Those weren't necessarily your high utilizers. Your high utilizers really shopped based on which formulary priced their drugs the best. The ones that didn't take anything but maybe a couple generics ended up on WellCare.
Yep.
Give me the zero.
Yep.
I don't want to pay. I just need a Part D so I don't get a late enrollment penalty. The others like Cigna and United and Aetna, pretty much everybody else that's in that standalone Humana Part D space, they got the high utilizers.
Right.
So they're sitting on a different book of business than WellCare. And I think with those, you can forecast more formulary changes, more increases to cost because they're having to make adjustments based on a more high utilized population of membership. So again, we have some of the same industry challenges as we had last year. At the IRA, nothing's changed there. We still have the $2,100 out-of-pocket maximum. The liability is still largely on the plans. We have seen an increase in some of these specialty drugs. That's another burden on the health plans. And then you have some regulatory activity. One to note is the copay smoothing. It's only recorded about 4% of members participated in copay smoothing. There's not a whole lot of utilization for that program. A lot of the low income people that participated end up with a larger bill at the end of the year because the way it works out. So it hasn't really played out to be great for your low income consumer, which is what it was designed for.
Right.
Because they create these payments throughout the year that all get divided by the remaining months in the year. So it just equals a large lump sum at the end of the year. Not ideal for the dual eligible. So I think there's still some things to be ironed out with copay smoothing. There was also a notion that it was going to take place at the pharmacy, and the PBMs and the pharmacies don't have the technology in place to enable that program at the point of sale at the pharmacy. So you still have to go to the health plan, activate it 24 hours later, you can go to the pharmacy and now you're on a payment plan. So there's some kinks there that still need to be worked out.
Imagine being in pill debt.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, you have this balance for your pill debt.
Right. It's Christmas, the worst part of the year. Now you've got, these bills coming in for these kind of delayed payments. Yeah. And the truth is they don't have to pay them. And that's what the plans are measuring is how much of this is going to get paid, how much of it is just really a write-off for the carriers. And they have to put all that into bid. So you have to make a lot of assumptions in these bid cycles. Think about when the carriers were planning all of these bids. It was back in the spring. They maybe had 2 or 3 months of copay smoothing data when they're trying to forecast what the overall exposure is.
Yeah.
Really, we need a good full 12 months to even start measuring what that liability is going to look like for the carriers.
Right.
And so, again, there's some assumptions being made. They have to assume the worst, but some of that could level out as we get into future years. The other regulatory activity, just to mention, is tariffs. A lot of medications are manufactured outside of the U.S., which could increase cost for the carriers on drugs. So there's that also we have to make mention of. Not to dive too much into regulatory talk, but there's been a push by the current administration to equal out our cost with other countries. So whatever a drug costs in Europe should cost the same in the US, and that should be sort of a benchmark for pricing moving forward. So we'll see. I mean, a lot of talk just about drug negotiations in general. Another thing I'll just comment on there is like these negotiated rates by Medicare. What we're learning is that a lot of the carriers actually negotiated the rates of those drugs lower than what Medicare did. So in some cases, the negotiated rate from the federal government is higher than what the carriers could negotiate on their own. And so that, not necessarily a win if there's a price increase versus a price decrease in negotiation. There's been a lot of talk amongst brokers about how do we navigate a standalone Part D customer when I'm not getting paid. And I think one of the questions that have come up is, can I just charge a fee? And the answer to that is no.
Right.
Unfortunately, per CMS guidelines, you cannot charge a consulting fee for a standalone Part D. But I've suggested to a lot of agents to utilize your Pearl that we provide for you with Simply Enroll, and ask your members to go on your Pearl and enter in their medications and just select the plan that is going to provide them the most effective cost structure. And the agent still is agent of record. If for any reason those plans become commissionable in the future, you haven't now coached your member how to go to Medicare.gov to enroll or told them to call the carrier direct, right? You're still providing them a service. I get it. Not every member can go to your Pearl and key in everything, but a lot of your probably standalone Part D members are also on a Medicare supplement. Perhaps they're a little more affluent, and navigating a Pearl is going to be very easy. And if they have questions, they can call you, but that should eliminate some of the time consumption and still attach you to that client.
Yeah. And for those that aren't super familiar with this, when you're saying Pearl, that's PURL, that's your personal URL that you get with your Simply Enroll or Sunfire account. And a lot of your clients are more savvy than we might give them credit for. I mean, they are getting used to going into their SSA.gov account. A lot of people, that's how they're signing up for Part B to begin with. And so they're getting with the tech, and our software is super easy to use.
And for those of you that really, want to talk to your clients, then try to nail down all your standalone Part D members early in October.
Yeah.
Right. Try to just be efficient with it. Utilize that customer intake link to get their drugs beforehand. You can send that out in a text. You can email a link. You can, provide on our member retention program, that QR code. So there's a lot of ways to try to eliminate some of that pre-work just to make it a little quicker. And if you put a bunch of people on WellCare last year, the good news is it's likely that'll still probably be the best plan. Where last year we saw a ton of movement onto the WellCare PDP, where I think this year we'll probably have a little more stability there, not as much plan-to-plan movement in the standalone Part D space. And speaking of that, there will be a plan consolidation on standalone Part Ds from Cigna. So the extra plan is terminating, and they will be crosswalking membership from the extra to the saver and to the assurance. So part of the population will be going to one of those two plans, and then they'll disenroll part of the population as well. So keep an eye on your membership with Cigna that's on the extra plan. If it moves to the saver or the assurance, as long as that's the right fit for that client, they stay there, you continue to receive a renewal. If they were disenrolled, those are the ones you're really going to want to target and try to help navigate to another plan. The Saver now changes to the HealthSpring Extra. The current Saver members will stay in that plan, and there is a full commission on that plan, which is $114 this year for initial, $57 for renewal. And then the Assurance, which is the basic plan, two strategies there. Some regions they kind of target right below the benchmark. Other regions they target right above the benchmark. And again, this is to get some of those auto assignments on the LIS side of things with standalone Part D. And again, that Assurance plan will be the one that is above the benchmark will also pay full compensation, $114. So, again, just a minor change there, but the good news is still being paid a commission now on all of the Cigna plans. Last year there was a reduced commission on the Saver, and then no commission on the Extra, and then the Assurance paid a commission. So good news there from Cigna, HealthSpring. The other thing I'll mention just as a caveat, I don't think many of you are still submitting paper applications, but if you submit a paper application to HealthSpring this year, you will not make a commission. So it's only electronic enrollments. They don't want any faxed or paper apps. And I think just, to wrap up Cigna, they, just expect, some disruption there. They're expecting that this year looks a lot like last year in terms of just plan disruption in general across the board, plan terminations. So they expect similar market environment as 2025. There will be a change in their broker portal. Cigna for brokers now comes HealthSpring for brokers. There will be an announcement about when that launches. They're going to have a new marketing materials storefront, more user-friendly. This is something they've been pushing for a while. Their search just launched on the 21st. There was a little delay there due to the brand changes. And again, they're just going to continue to focus on their strong markets, Texas, Arizona, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. And that's pretty much a wrap on Cigna. So moving over to Aetna, we just got back from Aetna last week in Orlando. Aetna took a unique strategy in 2025, which was, I would say, a quiet year for Aetna. 2025 was the year of United. They had, the most aggressive benefits. The year prior to that, though, was the year Aetna had SmartFit. They came out very aggressive on the D-SNP. They gained a ton of market share. They were really the unexpected carrier for 2024 that just blew the roof off. Mm-hmm. And move into 2025, that was United. It's kind of, depending on the year, depends on which carrier really comes out aggressive. I get the feeling from Aetna this year, and again, we don't have a whole lot of information, that they will be investing pretty significantly to regain some of that 2024 market share. It's a state-by-state footprint, so some states are going to be more aggressive than others. They did announce that benefits will come out mid to late August, so kind of keep an eye out for Aetna in that mid to late August timeframe. They will have some plans that they decide to not renew, and we'll have an idea of who. There won't be any surprises on those plans. We'll get a list out before AEP. Any plan that is non-renew or a service area reduction will go fully non-commissionable on September 1st. Why is that? Again, they don't want to put somebody on a plan 9/1 and then in October they get an ANOC that says their plan's going away. Yeah. Not a great member experience. So those will go non-commissionable 9/1. In terms of non-commissionable plans, they want to get us a list out early. They don't want to make any plans non-commissionable during AEP with a disclaimer that says we can't control market dynamics. We've talked about this in a previous podcast where carriers don't always know. A lot of this is anticipating what your competitors are going to do. If Aetna puts a lot of benefits into the, let's just call it Houston market, and another large competitor exits that market, they may get a lot more membership than what they forecasted.
Right.
This could very easily happen this year with PPOs, where everybody increases price on PPOs, yet who ends up with the lowest price? Could they end up with a lot of membership and then have to make that plan go non-commissionable? So Aetna is making a commitment to try not to give us any surprises, but there could be a surprise here or there, and really that could take place for any carrier. Steve Nelson is the new president of Aetna. He's formerly the president of United Healthcare. He was at United in some of their largest growth years, and he's a dynamic leader. He really came out and made a commitment to broker distribution that we're not going to see the roller coasters that we've seen in the past with Aetna. And that's true. It's been a roller coaster with Aetna. One year they're great, the next year they kind of pull back on benefits. It's left a sour taste in the mouths of some agents. But I think what we're seeing now is a commitment that those days are over. They're really looking to be a stable carrier out in the market. They want to be exceptional at the fundamentals, which is, again, that steady, kind of strong benefit structure, maybe not the most competitive, but not making it a roller coaster for their members and for the agents out there. They want to be distinctive in the market. They want to have a strong relationship with CMS. Again, there's been a lot of talk about prior authorizations. They want to develop a new approach to that. They actually have the fewest number of procedures that require prior authorization, and they're one of the carriers that's gone out there and said to providers that are like their gold star prior authorization providers that they get automatic approval. So if you have a very high percentage of approval, why make you wait? You're just a gold star provider. We're going to approve everything you send over. So the carriers are trying to develop sort of these more innovative ways of handling prior authorization so legislation doesn't have to come in and force their hand.
That's interesting. Are the providers like that get that status, will that be in the directory? Like if they...
I don't know. That's a good question.
That would be kind of a cool little star next to your name.
Yeah. That would be. I think a lot of patients would flock to them knowing that, if they want an MRI, they're not having to wait. Maybe with, provider down the road, it isn't the case. A lot of technology enhancements. They made a comment around their mobile app that when you do submit a prior authorization, you can actually see it being tracked in the mobile app. So then you know exactly what stage of approval it's in, when it's approved. And again, kind of gives you that comfort to know it's being processed. You're in line, but it's coming. So I think with the leadership of Steve Nelson, I feel very bullish about Aetna. I think that they have a great leadership team. In addition to Steve, they've brought on Jeff Fernandez. He's a former Humana executive, he was most recently the CEO of Ochsner Health Plans in Louisiana. So expect big things from Aetna in Louisiana. I think that Jeff brings just a lot of experience to the table. Again, he kind of pointed to the fact that right now the political environment isn't good for MA. Congress has reservations about this private-public relationship, and his goal is to play an active role in Congress's perception, to make them proud of this relation. This is the single largest government program that's tied in with private industry. It's the largest ever. And so they want to, while we do have some challenges, the senior leadership at Aetna is committed to working with Congress to bring solutions to make sure that they are proud of this relationship. AI is certainly being discussed as a mechanism across all elements of the industry, but in claims, Aetna says that they will never let AI make healthcare decisions. It's healthcare decisions to be made by a person. AI could provide details or help aid in that decision, but it's always, you're never going to have a denial of a claim made by AI. Jeff kind of mentioned, again, some of the common denominators that we've talked about just with the macro environment in Medicare, compressed margins, regulatory pressure, stakeholder expectations, again, having to answer to shareholders and guiding them through this correction period in the market and what that's going to look like in the future, technology advances, and the negative public sentiment overall just about the Medicare program. Smart growth was another point he made, just no more roller coaster benefits. Again, just echoing what Steve Nelson had said. C-SNP and D-SNP will continue to be a key focus for Aetna. And I will say that when we talk about D-SNP, Aetna is looking to double down on D-SNP. They're looking to regain a lot of market share. They will have the VBID, the SSBCI in replacement of VBID on D-SNP. So you will have access to the food card and some of those extra benefits that come along with that SSBCI program. So when we talk about product, Aetna, again, focused on stability, zero premium, $0 PCP on almost every plan, over 80% of plans. Their goal is to be at 100%, $0 Tier 1 drugs on all plans. All of their general enrollment, C-SNP and D-SNP plans will include dental, vision, and hearing. They're really looking to kind of simplify plan names, standardize their portfolio, focus a lot on their high-value providers. Aetna does own Oak Street. There's been a lot of coordination there, but packaging your health plan with a high-value provider unlocks additional benefits with Aetna, which is a cool just reward for going into value-based care. Perhaps there's more on their rewards wallet that they can use towards groceries, OTC, things of that nature. They will have a signature, a prime, and an elite plan. That's kind of their zero premium plans. And then their value plans, either the plus or the care products. Their Eagle plans, which is their MA only. And then big expansion in C-SNP. Aetna is very cautious about moving into new product categories. We saw this with D-SNP. They came out in a couple states and then really expanded the following year. We've seen the same methodology with C-SNP. They were just in a couple of states for 2025. Now they're expanding into 18 states across the country with C-SNP. That'll be 30 new service areas, 46 new plans. They will have the extra supports wallet, which allows you to have that grocery card. So big C-SNP expansion, and I expect that it'll be very popular. With the D-SNP, their footprint is expected to reach now over 7.5 dual eligibles. It's going to be full state of Illinois expansion, Kentucky, North Carolina specifically. They'll have coordinated only plans in 24 states. Those are going to be your plans that can only be enrolled in during AEP and OEP. Then you have your fully integrated, your FIDE plans, and your highly integrated, your HIDE plans. Those are in coordination with Medicaid and can be enrolled in year-round. So your FIDEs are in Illinois, New Jersey, New York, Virginia. Your HIDEs, Florida, Kentucky, Michigan, PA, coordination only in 24 states. And you've got states like Texas where they have HIDE and FIDE programs. So
you got your FIDE and your HIDE.
Yeah.
If you got anything from this episode, don't forget FIDE and HIDE. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's that could be a whole episode on its own, right? We don't really have time to dive into that, but a lot of what you have to look at as these carriers are rolling out D-SNP is how is it aligned with Medicaid? And is there going to be any shift in that Medicaid provider, right? So in some states, if you enroll in the D-SNP plan, your Medicaid follows. And that could disrupt the member. Maybe they have home health care. Maybe they have, custodial care at the house. Whatever, benefits they have on the Medicaid side, are you disrupting that? And then also, if you're going to enroll them outside of AEP and OEP, you only have enrollment in the integrated plans. Sunfire /Simply Enroll is your friend. It tells you the MCO provider, that's that Medicaid provider. So you know about integration. It'll suggest some of those SEPs. So again, something just to keep an eye on. I mentioned earlier that there will be SSBCI on the D-SNP. Aetna are saying about 96% of current members will qualify. And one thing to take note of, every carrier is interpreting SSBCI a little differently. Aetna is saying it's a self-attestation, and then they're going to verify the SSBCI qualifying condition through either prior claims, drugs, or through the provider. If it's not verified within the first couple months, then they lose the benefit. But with a self-attestation, that food card benefit is initially activated on the effective date. Other carriers are saying we have to verify the chronic condition prior to activating the benefit. So if the member hasn't done a call with the carrier, or the doctor hasn't validated that chronic illness, they could be, a month or a few weeks, whatever time frame that is, without that food card or that SSBCI benefit. So just keep an eye on how SSBCI is evaluated and what's the process with each carrier. So I think, with Aetna, again, big focus on that extra benefits card. They mailed over 2 million of the extra benefit cards last year. Over 1.3 million of them were activated with over 13 million transactions. So we know that these debit cards are extremely popular. Yeah. United kind of came out with the U card in the beginning, and we're seeing pretty much, every carrier where they call it a spendables card or an extra benefit or an extra wallet card, whatever, right? It's all that all-in-one card that they can use for their all their transactions, OTC, food card benefits, etc. CVS Aetna is also looking at just continuing to expand the network that you have with retailers. They tout the largest network in the industry with retailers that you can utilize for your food card benefit. Every market's going to be a little different. Of course, having every CVS in the country is a positive, but they also have places like Dollar General, Publix, retailers that would service that more low-income community. So yeah, I think that, overall, let me just go back through some of these additional notes, think if I had anything else on Aetna really to mention. I think that was about it. The general message I have from Aetna, and again, we'll see their first looks later this month, or later in August, is expect a big rebound from Aetna this year. I think that they're going to have strong benefits. They didn't really make much mention of PPO stress. So I think that their PPOs, while we can anticipate all PPOs are going to have some degradation in benefits, higher cost to the member, I think Aetna will be a viable option out there. For those that are still searching for a PPO, maybe they're not as elastic with the benefit changes. Like when I say elastic, meaning that they don't change plans just over a little bit of price change. They're not as price sensitive. So even though there is an increase in cost, that network flexibility is really what they value, and they're okay with benefits getting more expensive as long as they can continue to have flexibility in network.
All right. You thirsty?
I usually bring water into this podcast room and didn't this time. So yeah, a little bit.
Well, thanks for all the information. Really appreciate it. Again, folks, that is HealthSpring, formerly Cigna, and Aetna. Be on the lookout for more episodes like this. We have many more carriers to go as we get closer to AP.
That's right. WellCare, Humana, and United will be next.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.